The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, my friends, welcome back for another e-commerce empire bonus session. We have been spoiling you guys with bonus sessions over the last few weeks. I think in the last 2 weeks, you guys have had a total of like 6 or 7 webinars. So this is going to cap off the grand finale of all of those bonus sessions that we've been doing. We probably will take a good week or two off from bonus sessions. I got a few things that I'm planning for you guys, but this is going to be the grand finale for this big spur of bonus sessions that we had over the past few weeks. One of the last bonus sessions we had, actually last Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, about 7 days ago, we had a session on manufacturing ultra high quality goods. How do we take an idea and get it into 10,000 units, 20,000 units, 100,000 units, while protecting our intellectual property? And it was a really interesting session. The person that we had in for it is the best in the world at that, but it was not really about Amazon sellers. So we learned a lot of really interesting things, but most people did not get immediately applicable value out of that. So I said, man, we have to get another manufacturing session that is specifically about Amazon, someone that knows the Amazon industry and has their own Amazon business and is sold on Amazon. So that is what today's session is all about. Today we're going to be talking about manufacturing for Amazon sellers, and we actually have a member, an alumni of the Startup Bros community here with us today, Gaston Liang, who is he will tell us. I believe he is the founder of the LGG, the LGG Corp. We almost called it the LGG Group here, but the LGG Corp. And he has been, him and his family have been doing business in China, owned factories for generations, and really interesting guy. Like I said, he's been in the Startup Bros community for since 2015, I believe. So he's been selling on Amazon for a while as well. And he also went to China with us on the Sourcing Summit trip, which was awesome. And that is obviously available for you guys too. The next one's going to be in April. But that is Gaston. That's how we met Gaston and came into contact with Gaston. And he is just an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to manufacturing. I started talking to him a few weeks ago about, doing something. He wants to just help people out in the Amazon community more. How can I, he sees all the trouble that people are having in the community with sourcing agents and manufacturing firms, contract manufacturing. And he kind of has his foot in both of the worlds, mass manufacturing and selling on Amazon and getting started selling on Amazon, which is a really unique part of that business. So I will stop ranting now, and I'm going to turn it over to Gaston. Gaston's got a really good presentation for you guys here today. He's also here with his account manager, Bruce Deutsch, and both, or pretty much all of us, are going to be hanging out in the question box. We got Steve here as well. And we're going to be hanging out in the question box, marking questions, hanging out with you guys. Gaston is going to give you guys this incredible presentation. I believe he calls it the 12 tips to success in e-commerce. And this is going to be from a very manufacturing-centric angle. This is going to be an extremely valuable presentation, guys. A lot of you will probably learn some new terminology and really get a deep understanding of how you can take your Amazon products and make more money with them, whether that be through making product tweaks and customizations and how to manage that, or just working with your supplier to increase your margins and optimize their business to kind of bring down your costs. So a lot of things we're going to be talking about here today, but I'm going to stop ranting. Gaston, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the introduction, Will. Thank you for everybody for coming. Like Will said, my name is Gaston. It's Sunday, so I really appreciate you guys coming along here for this presentation. So I really hope that you guys will find this as educational and entertaining as much as possible. So like Will said, I've been part of the Startup Brother for the better part of 3 years now. And I've gone through the course. I've been to the Canton trip, and both of those have been of tremendous value, right? And within that time, I've created several brands, got multiple products, and have sold on and off Amazon. And what I want to share with you guys is my experience, right? So first and foremost, I'm having a lot of fun. I think this is a big part of success is, always enjoy what you do. I've made lots of new friends along the way, forged numerous new business relationships, but most importantly, I fell back in love with my family business. I am taking a new twist and turn to it. I did evolve it a little bit, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a few slides. So on to today's topic: product manufacturing and importation from Asia. Tips and tricks from a banana. So you guys are
I'm
you
gonna
guys
have to mute myself. I didn't realize there was gonna be jokes in here.
No, absolutely. You have to make it entertaining. So, you guys are either going through the Startup Brother course or completed it already. But my guess is at the end of the day, you guys are trying to take some product to the market. So it's either a product where you are trying to improve it and to reset its product life cycle, or something brand new that you're just creating from scratch. Um, And for those that are just getting started, right? I mean, sourcing is probably your current focus at this point. But let me tell you this: sourcing is only the beginning. There's so much more to this in order to have a very successful e-commerce. We have several 6, 7 figure Amazon seller, and prior to contracting with us, they had many deficiencies within their operation, right? From supplier selection to quality control, communication problem, logistics troubles. Each of those clients were experiencing some various degrees of pain throughout their operation. So hopefully after this webinar, I'll be able to alleviate some of those pains for you guys. And I want to share a few golden nuggets, right? I've picked those along the way. And this is applicable for a product that needs a reset on its product life cycle, or something that is still in the conceptual phase, type of back of the napkin type deal. So before we start, I'd like to say that one thing for sure in life is change, right? And e-commerce is really no different. As a matter of fact, the e-commerce landscape is changing at all time. And at this point, sellers are no longer able to just go on Alibaba or the like and buy a sample, slap a logo on it, change a color, and call it good, right? Those days are long gone. The solution, you might ask, is truly you need to have innovation and effective branding. Those are the two founding pillar for successful e-commerce. So with this in mind, let's dive in. One of the biggest challenge that you'll face throughout this whole business is effective communication, right? You need to be able to communicate with your vendors, and this is applicable to all vendors, right? Not just the one in China. Here's a slide from the 1970s, and it's still very applicable today. Clearly, we have a case of miscommunication, right? Everybody's talking about a swing. Everybody has a different vision of a swing, but nobody's really talking about the same swing. And at the end, you can see the swing that they end up with is not even what the customer wanted. So, communication is tremendous. Now add that to the cultural clash of working with the Chinese and the language barrier, you have a recipe for an epic failure. So here's some tips and tricks to help you manage this issue. Um, I like the use of technical drawings. Right? I think that this is the most effective way to communicate with your vendor, and here's what I mean. This is the CAD, or the computer aid design of the Apple Watch. Uh, this describes the product in its full detail. With this in hand, any manufacturer that is in the business of making those electronics can make one. So it brings me to my first point, the importance of technical drawings and model. This is where I always start. I use a CAD, a technical drawing, or better yet, a 3D model. Can you get there without it? Sure, absolutely, but you'll be at a big disadvantage. Personally, I believe that a good technical drawing and model provide you a solid foundation on which to build your project. Again, I'm not saying that you must have one, but it'll sure makes things a lot easier in the long run. And here's why it is important to you. Well, first, it really helps you visualize what you're trying to make, right? Put on paper exactly what you envision and trying to get accomplished. Two, all your specs, dimension, details, all the little thing that makes up your product is gonna be on this blueprint, so to speak. And three, you'll be able to keep track of any changes you make to this product, right? So if you have any design notes, comments, challenges, just revision, you'll be able to keep track of those. And last, this is truly the best way to convey to your vendor, manufacturer, whatever they need to do. So this is the importance of technical drawings. So this is leading to our very first tip. It's the danger of oversharing, right? Be very, very careful with this information, right? Technically, this is kind of having the keys to your kingdom, right? Everything you need to do or everything about your product will be on this document. So, really see this as a double-edged sword, right? It's great that everything is on there, but, if it falls into the wrong hand, you'll have a serious case of the copycat. So, how do we combat this? What can we do? So, by far, my favorite way is just use people that you trust. Organization that's been vetted by your people. It's not always possible, but this is the favorite method. Two, if you don't have access to that, what I do is I break up the design when possible. Have several pieces, so nobody really know exactly what you're making or doing at all time, and have a final assembly done somewhere else. So, all right, now you have your CAD, your model, and your supplier knows exactly what they need to do. What do we do next? Do we go into production with a high MOQ? Of course not. The next step to that would be prototyping. This is one step that I absolutely love. I'm a strong believer in this. This would save you so many heartaches, so many wallet ache in the long run. And here's the benefit to that. Once you get that prototype, it'd be a one-to-one scale of exactly what you're trying to make. You'll be able to play with it, feel it, test it, evaluate it, just to be 100% sure that that's exactly what you want. You'll be able to send it to your vendor or manufacturer, and that way they'll be able to see exactly what they're working with, and that just saves yourself from potential miscue down the road. And having that physical item to be the exact replica of what you're making or the exact product, you can start working on your packaging. Package design, even plan for your logistic need. And just save you time in the long run. And last, if you need to make any changes, improvement, you can do it right there and there on the fly. Just take the model you have or that small production and just tinker with it, right? And I've never seen a product going to market with zero revision. It's just not possible. So this is when that technical drawing I mentioned in the first step comes in handy, right? You can keep track of all the changes that's needed. So, how do we get those prototype made? I'm a big fan of using additive manufacturing, and that leads us to the second tip. Think of this as 3D printing on crack. So, exactly what is additive manufacturing? So, it's a very highly sophisticated printing technique, 3D printing technique. It has nothing to do with the commercial unit that you see on Amazon for 3, 4, 5, even $1,000. Those are not even typically seen in the average workplace. This is a specialized process used for rapid prototyping. And most of you guys are probably familiar with CNC machining, right? This is a very commonly used technique. It's great. It does a lot of things, but CNCing is expensive. It takes time to set up. It takes a skill to run this machine, and the best way I found to get prototype is just use additive manufacturing. One of those techniques that I'm a big fan of is called SLA. It stands for Serial Lithography Apparatus. What that gives you is, the prototype you get is super high tolerance, right? Within 3,000 of an inch. That's about the average thickness of a human hair. You can use various type of media to get your prototype. It could be polymer, it could be metal. You can change how flexible it is to accommodate your needs. It can be transparent, and you can even change the composition of it. And I know you guys are probably thinking that must be $1 million, right? No. If you have the right partnership, we actually have done prototyping for clients for as little as a few $100. But the true value here is not that it costs little or whatnot. The true value here is speed to market, right? As I mentioned earlier, you can do CNC for prototyping or small runs or whatnot, but having SLA makes it super, super fast. There's no setup. It just, lack of better word, prints. So SLA is not always applicable. So if we have to fall back, we have CNC machine on standby domestically and abroad. So if you need to do a prototype that way, or it must be CNC, we can always accommodate for that. And for those that want to see what SLA looks like, these are some parts actually made using that technique. You can see that's highly detailed. The top right part there, if I had to do that CNC, I'll probably have to tear my hair out. This is very, very difficult. Um, so, all right, next topic. Let's talk about that small run or that validation run that I mentioned. And the goal here, guys, is to limit your financial exposure. Right? Have a small run typically means larger than a sample buy that you would do on Alibaba, but way less than a normal production run. And this just allows you to be in the game without betting the farm. If we have any poker players out there, it'd be very similar to limping into the pot. And here's what I mean by that. This is a true story from one of our clients. They are in the business of making injection molded parts. The quote that they got initially from his original vendor was $8,000. At the time, the client was willing to pay, but that $8,000 was a um, large portion of his working capital, and his unit cost was what, about 210 or something like that. So he got in touch with us, and we took over his manufacturing need. We talked him into considering doing a smaller mold instead. The difference between a full-blown production mold and a smaller mold is that the smaller mold could only make so much, right? So it's more time consuming. It can only produce less. Um, and it did raise the cost of his unit to $3 as opposed to 210. But here's the kicker: that smaller mold was only $2,000, right? So he effectively saved $6,000 and still be in the game. So what if his unit price went up by 90 cents? That's $6,000 allowed him to create another 2,000 extra unit, right? That he would be selling at a profit. And the point here, guys, is think outside the box, right? There's always more than one way to get things done. Okay, now that you have a blueprint, you're happy with your product, you've validated the prototyping or a small run, it's time to start negotiating and start talking to your factory vendor or whoever your guy is. But before we can do this effectively, the important here is market research, right? Know your number. And what I mean by that is you need to fully understand your numbers for your product. Know exactly what you're getting into. Know what the retail price is going to be, or have a good gauge of what the market will bear for your product, right? Realistically, how much can you afford to pay for this product, or the packaging, or the logistics. Basically, know what your landed cost or starting landed cost has to be. And this is the only way you can have a meaningful conversation with your supplier or manufacturer in order to know if you're being presented with a good price or not. You can certainly take the brute force approach, bang on 20 trees or call 20 manufacturer and get the lowest price. But there's honestly no guarantee that whatever price you settle in that way is the right price. What you'll do is, you'll be chasing bottom dollars. You'll get probably a very cheaply made product with subpar service. You get what you paid for still very much applies in Asia. So what I like to do is, market research, right? Do a price analysis. That way, when I gather all the data, I can determine what the landed cost has to be based on my profit margin. And that way, it allows me to more effectively negotiate with vendors. And this leads on to our next tip. Don't beat up your vendors, right? This is a two-way street. On the other line, on the other side, there's somebody that's trying to make a dollar, or in this case, RMB. But don't beat them too badly, right? If you do that, you'll fall down the pecking order, and get subpar services or subpar product, and don't be surprised. And what I mean by pecking orders, your relative importance to that vendor, right? For a lack of a better word, they're just not gonna care. Now, don't get me wrong, do negotiate, right? I'm a big proponent of negotiation. That's why tip number 4 is so important. You need to know your numbers. So with that being said, once you gather all that data, um, make sure that you have a data-driven negotiation. Right? This is the best way to do this. And when people start negotiating, I think one thing a lot of people tend to lose sight of is your MOQ, right? Let's say that you start out with a very low MOQ. Realize that your buying power is not that high. It's pretty low. Like, if the proposed price from that vendor is not exactly where you want to be, it's not a big deal. It's a low MOQ. Like, if you're overpaying 100 unit by 50 cents or $1, your exposure is only, $100 max, right? And there's nothing that, prevents you from revisiting that deal when you hit the higher MOQ. Always negotiate in the future, but don't let those few extra pennies stopping you from getting started. I think that's the take home message here. So next, I'd like to talk about, how to effectively communicate with Asia. I think there's an art form to that. Here's some tips that I found that works really well. I still apply those guidelines, although I speak the language and I know exactly how to talk to them, but still, I still use those guidelines. So when you talk with your Jennifer, Sophie, Jane, or Mary, or whatever name she said that it is, make sure that you use very concise, succinct words. Don't use any fancy English word. Use plain English. Be very task and detail oriented. It wouldn't be a bad idea also to number each task, right? Number one, number two, number three. Make sure that they are date and milestone driven, right? Do XYZ on so and so date. That makes sure that everything moves along. And from time to time, when applicable, ask for proof of life, right? Ask them to take a picture just to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So this is communicating with Asia. A next topic that comes up a lot is payment method. A lot of people ask me, so how do you pay your people? What kind of arrangement you have? What are the terms and whatnot? So let's talk about the probably your vendor's favorite way of getting paid, TT. And pretty soon it should become your favorite way as well. However, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This I would never ever recommend doing a TT in the early stages of doing business, right? And you guys will see why. It is the fastest way and probably one of the cheapest way to get assets across the globe. But once the money leaves your account, there's really virtually zero recourse that you can do to get your money back. And it's the cheapest because both party only pay like one low fee, and the actual amount of how much money is needed to do a TT is gonna depend on your bank and the type of relationship you have. But once you send the money, 48 hours max, your supplier or vendor will get the money. So I said that this should become your favorite payment method, and this is the reason, right? The more and more TT you do, well, first and foremost, that means that you're reordering. That means you're selling stuff. That means your business is growing, but it also means that you're establishing a good relationship and strengthen the bond between you and your vendor. So this is super important. Another thing that I like to do while I use TT is use that as a negotiation tool. I mean, everybody is saving a little bit of money by using that. So don't be afraid to use that to your advantage. Hey, look that, tell them to knock off a few points if you use TT, that way everybody win. So TT is the favorite way of doing things. What is the least favorite way? AliTrade is probably the least quote unquote favorite method of sending funds. It is the most secure. It is also the most expensive. So most US buyer will just link up their credit card with Alibaba or whatnot. So every time you settle on an invoice, it's gonna knock off, I think, 3 or 4%. It's just gonna add that to your trade. In addition to that, the receiving party also have to pay 3 or 4% to get the money. But in addition to that, they also have to pay another percentage to sell on Alibaba, and they also have yearly fees to maintain that store. But like I said, it is the most secure and the safest way. Alibaba really look after this trade, and most stores wouldn't want to risk their Alibaba store. So, is there a compromised way of doing all this? Sure, there is. And it's the use of PayPal, right? It gives you some protection, not as good as with Ali Trade, but it does offer, buyer protection and whatnot. One thing with PayPal is if you do have to use their buyer protection, it can take up to 30 days to get your funds back. So if you are going to use PayPal, I urge you to use that in conjunction with a very good credit card, and that will act as a second layer of protection when you use PayPal. Now, there are some drawbacks of using PayPal. Number one, your vendor might not have PayPal, and that's not that uncommon. A lot of Chinese vendor they don't care for PayPal, don't have a PayPal, and cannot get a PayPal, and there's still that 4% that they have to pay in order to receive the money, and it takes a little longer than obviously it takes longer than TT, and it takes a little longer than Ali Trade. I've heard 20 to 30 days from time to time. Here's a tip using PayPal's 4% fee to your advantage. And here's what I mean by that. I like to use that 4% as a gauge to see where I fall in the negotiation, right? So, if you have to settle an invoice amount with your vendor, don't be surprised if they say, hey, you need to add 4% to that so we can recuperate our money. So that's fine. This is the cost of doing business using PayPal. Take care of that. But if that vendor accept the transaction, accept the PayPal, but does not bark and does not add 4%, well, guess what? You have at least overpaid by 4%. My guess is you probably pay more, but 4% is for sure. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to start future negotiation on next reorders with 5% maybe. So this is the tip on PayPal. My next one is a tip that I have not seen mentioned online. It's using WeChat Pay. For those that don't know what WeChat is probably the most powerful communication tool in Asia. It makes Facebook look like Morse code. So if you are ever going on an adventure in China, you will need WeChat. You will need WeChat Pay. It will be essential. A lot of places don't even take credit card anymore, let alone an international credit card. A lot of people are moving away from using cash, and virtually all businesses locally, even the very, very small one, take WeChat Pay. My favorite function with WeChat Pay by far is the use of red envelopes, sending red envelopes. So, what are those? Prior to the digital world, red envelopes were just what the name implies, red envelopes. They were stuffed with monies, and they represent good luck, fortune. So people give red envelope to people. So if you know your Jennifer's birthday, send her a red envelope. If you know Sophie just had a newborn baby, send her a red envelope. Or if Mary hooked you up with a difficult task and she went above and beyond for you and your business, send her a red envelope. Now, make sure that you don't just send red envelope for sending red envelope, right? If they're just doing their job, don't send them red envelopes. We don't want to set a bad precedent here. Just keep in mind, this is just a small gesture of a token of appreciation, so to speak. There are some limitation with WeChat Pay, so it's not the ideal tool to conduct regular business. And what I mean by that is you can only roughly spend about $30,000 a year using WeChat. And there's a daily limit of $500. So it's really not ideal if you're gonna pay very large invoices unless you apply for a WeChat business account. And there are also limitations on how much you can put in a red envelope. So the amount here is actually 200 RMB. That's all you can put in one of those. Here's the tip inside a tip. So it's like a tip inception, right? So the Chinese love the number 8, just because it sounds like fortune, money. So when you do send those red envelopes, how much do you send? Don't send 8 RMB, right? This is ridiculous. This is about $1.50. But you can send 88 RMB. This is about $15, or like better yet, 188 RMB. $30, right? Like I said, it's a great token of appreciation. And, if you use those numbers, if you know about the number 8, that's just, deepens the connection that you have with your vendor. So if you guys are interested, I can create a more detailed post on how to activate and fund WeChat Pay with a US account. Is not that straightforward, but yeah, I can make it happen. So, all right. So now it's time to, find those suppliers that you need to negotiate with. So how do I find them? Where do I go to fish for them? Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Alibaba. It's just too risky. You never really know who's on the other line. For all you know, you're just talking to a total stranger on a scam. But when I do need new suppliers and when I need to find them, I tend to find them in person. I do to the Canton Fair for that purpose. I rarely go to find new product, right? And here's why. By the time that product or whatever they're selling hits the expo floor, you're already too late, right? You're competing against the rest of the world. Everybody has seen this product. Everybody can, copy this product, and it is not beneficial at all. So, what do I do when I go to the Canton Fair? I'm always on the lookout for new potential business partners, right? I mean, I'm not saying that you cannot be successful in this business with a product that you get from the Canton Fair. Obviously, there's plenty of you out here probably on this webinar that are very successful by doing that. But when I pick battles, I just to have an edge, and I don't like fighting against the current. So, how do you scout for new business partners at the fair? Let's start with what not to do. Avoid those super large booths, right? I mean, they're very easily recognized. They're the largest one, shiniest one. They have a million Jennifer running around in suits, and they probably have several locations at the fair. Unless you're gonna command volume like a Walmart, a Home Depot on multiple product, they won't really entertain you. I will also avoid the very small booth, right? The very small one that carries a little bit of everything. 9 times out of 10, they're just a trading company. It's not worth it. Instead of getting a business partner, you'll end up with another middleman that will just add weights to your business. So here's what I look for. I look for a medium-sized booth that sell very specialized item. Look over what they have to offer. More often than not, you can spot manufacturing trends. It looks like all their stuff come from the same machine or same mold, and those are the people that I tend to engage. And when I engage them, I'm really upfront with them. I don't lie to them, or I don't lie to them much. I don't bullshit them. I'll tell them exactly what I'm here for and what I'm looking for. But be careful. Don't overshare. Right at this point, they're not your business partner yet. You just need to engage them enough to spark a meaningful conversation. Right? Because more than likely, the boss will be at the booth, but more than likely, he or she does not speak English. So you need to start that conversation with that Jennifer, right? Ask tough question, right? Ask a lot of questions that requires a lot of decision making. Eventually, that Jennifer won't be able to keep up with you, and she'll have to get her boss, and her position will transition into a translation for the boss. When you get that boss attention, now's your chance. Make your mark. Make a good impression. Get that name card. And here's a tip: don't say ni hao. Don't say ni hao unless you're gonna finish the negotiation in Chinese. And here's a very, very advanced tip for you adventurers out there. Many of the medium-sized booth or factories actually don't go to the Canton Fair. They don't attend not because they cannot produce, but they might not need to attend and still get plenty of business, right? As you guys know, Guangzhou is actually divided into a different manufacturing district. So, you'll have a district that specializes in making car parts, ceramics, plastic, etc., etc. Again, this tip is not for the faint of heart, but you can go to those districts and find a lot of very valuable gems out there. If you do find someone outside of the fair, you'll definitely have a significant edge over the competition. Not only they don't advertise their product on Alibaba or at the fair, but they'll be able to make exactly what you want. Now, it is definitely harder to find a supplier that way, but hey, no risk, no reward. And before you go, if you decide to go, I would arm myself with a very good driver. Find yourself a driver. He'll drive you around all day. It's not that expensive. Get yourself a good uh, translator, a trustworthy translator, and a good translation app. And if you go before the fair, right? During the fair and after the fair, things tend to get a little crazy. So go before. Okay, now that you have located your supplier, you have an idea what you're trying to make. Let's talk about logistics. You'll need those to get stuff from factory to factory within Asia, or get into the U.S. shores. So to be clear, um, I'm not about to present a course in logistics. Right, logistics is one of those things that is highly specialized. We use vetted partners for that, and it's a very specific task, and we just let those people do what they do best. But for those that think that this is easy and you can save a few bucks, here's a few things to consider. So this is frequently a challenge point. I've heard many horror stories, but if you set this up right, it could be a great asset for you. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about blind shipment, double blind shipment, maybe talk a little bit about registering with the vessel manifest confidentiality, how to optimize your excess code, and maybe some minor tasks that your logistics folks can help you beyond shipping. So let's start with blind shipment. Here's the scenario. You want to get something from A to B without A or B connecting the dot. What do I mean exactly? So let's say that you're sending your product from the production facility to a secondary facility for either additional assembly, or if you want to combine products, or if you just need more works, right? Like we mentioned way back in tip number one, breaking up the design, you definitely don't want those two parties to start talking. So use blind shipment. For the double blind shipment, I'm sure you guys have connected the dot already. It's the same concept, but except now both parties are actually clueless. So A doesn't know where his stuff is going to or who this is going for, and B doesn't know where this is coming from, and doesn't know who this is for. This is pretty easily done. So how do we do it, right? So you need to leverage your logistic workforce. This really reinforced the concept of having a good business relationship. Any logistics company in China worth their salt, or actually worth their rice in this case, will know exactly what you're talking about, and they can set that up for you. You just have to ask. Next topic, ICSHAS code. So for those that don't know, the ICSHAS code is used to determine how much tax and duty you're responsible for once those product gets to the U.S. shore. And sometime if you use a slightly different code, you can save many percentage of that shipment duty. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying call a pig a horse or a horse a pig. I'm just saying that, whatever code you're using, make sure that it is the optimized one, right? Talk to your logistics people. Ask them if there's any different code, any other different code that can be applied to your product and ultimately save you a few percentage there. I cannot count the number of times I've done that for clients, just to get the right excess code. It could be like 4, 5, 6% sometimes. And another thing that I like to use my logistics folks for is to keep my factories honest, right? They can provide you with an independent shipment code cost, and to double check whatever your factory is quoting you, just to keep everybody honest. So here's on to the next tip. How do you get more mileage out of your logistics team? So now that we talked about production, we talked about logistics, a step in between is inspection. Like I mentioned earlier, inspection is also one of those very specific topic. I guess I could spend a whole hour just talking about inspection. So it's highly specialized. And so here's what I do to get a little bit more mileage with my logistics team. I found it sometimes beneficial to use unofficial folks to perform my official inspection, and I call them my ninja inspector. And here's what I mean. Remember those red envelope I mentioned earlier? So let's say that sometime a very large red envelope would most of the time streamline most inspection. So I like to use my Ninja Inspector, right? So they'll go and perform an official checkup for me. They'll go to the factory or whatnot under the pretense of doing some logistics works, but really what they're there for is they're checking on my stuff. They're less likely to get presented with those red envelope as they are not labeled inspectors. Right? They don't have to be pleased. Um, but keep in mind, at the end of the day, those logistics team or whatnot, they're not technical folks, right? If you are asking to perform like a 50-step inspection with some very highly sophisticated tool, more than likely they won't be able to do it. I just do it to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So next tip, how to even get more mileage out of your logistics team and maximize that. One service that a lot of e-commerce company use these days is the use of a prep center. Prep center do stuff like applying labels for you or combining articles or do packaging, etc., etc. Those tasks actually can be performed by your logistics team by just asking, and most of the time it's free. Well, depend on the relationship you have, but most of the time I just have them do it, right? So don't be shy. Have your logistics folks perform those small minor tasks for you, right? They can definitely apply a label for you. They're moving cargoes across an ocean for you. They can definitely do packaging, combining, canning, etc., etc. Leverage your relationship. It's definitely a lot cheaper than using those US prep center. I mean, think about it. You have that extra travel that your cargo has to go. It has to unload and load and get to the prep center, and all this while paying US labor. This is crazy. That tip alone should save you many, many points on your overall cost. So I avoid prep center. I save myself some money there. So this brings us to our last tip. It's the Pareto principle. I'm sure you guys have heard about this one. A lot of people refer that as the 80-20 rule. And what I want to say, guys, is like truly embrace this, right? This journey that I've embarked with the Startup Brother really made me realize that really, really, really focus on that 20% that makes you money. The rest is just noise and distraction, right? Focus on what you do best. Always, always. And this brings us to our last topic. What makes you money? After all this, you get your product to the U.S. shore. What else do you do? You know, always find new way to expand your business, right? Focus on your new marketing campaign or a new strategy, or maybe polish that branding technique. Have new novel ways to brand yourself. Always be on the lookout of figure out new distribution channels, right? A lot of people think that having an Amazon listing it's having your own business. No, that's just a different distribution channel. So always be on the lookout to have more channels, and maybe even work out like a wholesale deal or a distributor deal. That wouldn't be too uncommon. So always focus on actually what grows your business and what makes you money. So I've covered a lot. Hopefully, you guys have got some value out of this. I think it's time for a short Q&A, so I could go drink some water. But let me pull this up, and this is a summary of all the topic I've covered.
Cool. Yeah, awesome stuff, man. And we have questions piling up. So we'll go ahead and knock out the existing questions. Go ahead, guys, and drop any questions you want answered from Gaston or myself in the box, and we'll start knocking those out. I have a couple questions on the side, too, so I don't think we're going to run out of questions, but I have some additional things to talk about as well. So let's start knocking them out. And this is going to be starting, obviously, from the beginning of your presentation. So interesting. Some people asked, when do we need to get a CAD drawing? How do we get a CAD drawing? Will suppliers give us a CAD drawing? So can you talk about, and Gaston, you're really familiar with kind of the Startup Bros methodology and where people are starting from in this course. You talked about how, validation. We have to validate the product before, you understand the lean startup methodology and all these different things. So with all of that in mind, and, from where a lot of people are starting from this course, when do they need to get CAD drawings? When do they have to start caring about that?
Well, here's what I think, right? You should always start with that, but it's not always applicable. So if you're buying a sample of something that is already being made, more than likely, you won't need a CAD drawing, right? This is really applicable to once you get a product and you're making improvement upon it. Really when you start making it your own, this is when you should start caring about it. Or if you're designing something from scratch, that's, instead of collecting those napkins with those chicken scratch on it, start getting a CAD drawing made. How do you get them? So with an engineering background, I do them myself, or have one of my staff do it for me. But if not, the best way to get one is to, well, use us. We can definitely get one for you. But use an engineering firm. Right? I think that they specialize in that. There's a lot of people that do CADing or drafting or modeling. And if you're gonna go through all this trouble and get a CAD, I would start with a 3D model, because you can always go from 3D to 2D, but you can't really do 2D to 3D without a lot of work. So hopefully that explained a little bit about how to get one of those. And can you get one from your supplier? Yeah, I guess, but think about it, right? If you are gonna pour your heart, soul, and product to that supplier, and they make the CAD for you, they kind of own you at this point. So if it's not a supplier or somebody that we've truly worked before, I definitely don't share CADs or technical drawing with any of those folks.
Okay, awesome. Let us see what else I got for you here. Faye has a question that, I believe you answered, but maybe you can go in some more detail on.
Sure.
Do you use Chinese when speaking to Alibaba suppliers? Are they wary when they understand that you don't understand Chinese? You don't have anyone in your company that understands Chinese?
Wait, what was the question?
The question was, do you use Chinese to speak to Alibaba suppliers, and are they wary if your company doesn't have any Chinese speakers in it?
No, I mean, if they're on Alibaba, that means that they're in business to cater to the West, right? If, on the other hand, if you find them on 1688, that's the Chinese version of Alibaba, you know, no, if you're on Alibaba, they should cater to the West and speak Chinese, right? I mean, speak English, sorry. But the problem you face there is a lot of those people that speak English, is not very good English, and you have a lot of potential for miscue. When first of all, I don't communicate with people on Alibaba. Like I said, it's too risky for me. I have this trust issue, and I truly vet the people we work with, so I tend to not find new source. But when I do find new source, and when I see them in person, I speak Chinese to them directly. I think that it's a great icebreaker, and it makes things easier. Um, so yeah, I don't think it's a problem if you find a supplier on Alibaba. No, speak English to them, right? They should be able to cater to your business as well.
Awesome. And Anna's got a few questions here.
Hey, Anna.
I'm not sure. Yeah, no, you guys actually met on the first sourcing summit trip that you went on, right?
Correct.
Anna's been in China with us a few times now.
Yeah,
I think China's
I've heard.
been,
I've heard.
Anna's been, I think, 3 times, yeah. But Anna's got a few questions for you. She loves the idea of the red envelope, and she just asked for more details on that. Can you provide any step-by-step instructions on the red envelope Chinese New Year's
Yeah,
method?
absolutely. I mean, this is a very common thing, right? I mean, I don't want you guys to take it wrong. This is not a straight up bribe. I'm not talking about bribe here. Red envelope are given to a lot of occasions. When I was a kid, on my birthday, I was guaranteed a bunch of those, right? So I was always on the lookout for them. But also, as I grew older and my family member got kids themselves, I would also give red envelope, and it's just It's just a fortune thing, right? A lot of time too, when people go on vacation or travel for work, I don't know why, but they will give you a red envelope for good luck and good fortune, right? So the way you use it on WeChat, use it the same way, right? I would just use it as a quote unquote tip. You know, if like I said, if they did something for you above and beyond, then tip them. If this their birthday, right, just don't tip on their birthday. Just give them a red envelope, right? So beyond that, I don't think there's more explaining to do. And you're pretty limited on how much you can give away. It's 200 RMB. That's $30. But I think the take home message here is like use the number eight. Give them 88 or give them 188.
Cool. And yeah, just valuable advice in general. I have no idea where I heard this from or read this, but I once heard this concept, this idea that we are so conditioned to tip people that we spend money with, but we never tip people that we make money with.
Absolutely.
And it's just very counterintuitive. So yeah, I think that's a great strategy. And in general, even outside of suppliers in China, just in general, if you have service providers, independent contractors, VAs, if someone goes above and beyond, if they're mowing your lawn, if they're cutting your trees, like whatever it is, if they're plumbing your toilets, give them a tip. I guess plumbing your toilets and getting your trees trimmed isn't you're not making money on that, but in principle, very, very good idea there. We're so conditioned to tip things that we lose money on, where cash flows out. We very rarely think to tip where cash is coming in. So yeah, great concept there.
Absolutely, and I'll actually add on to that. Within the LGG Corp, we actually have an incentive for all the vendors we work with, and this is like behind the scene. Like we don't usually disclose that, but we have a bonus incentive for all our vendor manufacturer that either make stuff for us or have deliverable with us. We have a little bonus. It's a certain percentage if you complete the task well before the deadline. We incentivize them, and this is how you need to take care of your people. This is, I think, a part of establishing a good relationship, right? I mean, let's face it, right? We're all doing this because of the money, right? Not because we love this so much. But I do find joy in what I do.
And Doug said, never send 444, which is a good joke, a very culturally applicable joke. But it raised an interesting question. Are there any numbers we should avoid? Obviously, like 144 would be bad.
Yeah,
I think
with a four.
sevens are also unlucky, correct?
Yeah, anything with a four. I don't know about seven, but anything with a four. The good numbers are nine and eight. What nine is? It's a sign of longevity, and eight is fortune. So stick with 88 or 188. You'd be good. 4
Yeah.
years. It
I
sounds
just
like death.
I just brought this up just while you were talking. Here, I'll steal the screen from you for just a second.
Sure.
There's an interesting Wikipedia page if you guys are interested to learn more about it. But every number here has just a little bit of information on it. Even 4 doesn't have a ton. They actually, never mind. They have a whole article on tetraphobia. But look at 8. 8 has just bullet points and bullet points and bullet points of how much they love the number 8. So great piece of advice there. Gaston, I'm going to give you the screen back, and you can. Why don't you also, just before in case anyone has to log off early or anything, why don't you quickly go through how people can work with you? Because to give you guys background, one of the way that I could get Gaston to put together this presentation and give it to you guys is because he wants to do more sourcing for people in our community and Amazon sellers in general. And like I said, he messaged me all the time during presentations with other guest experts, and he'll say, hey, we could be doing this so much better this way, or so yeah, Gaston, why don't you talk about how people can work with you and what it's going to be like to work with you? And guys, keep the questions coming. I probably got about 5 to 10, probably like 5 or 7 more questions. So feel free to keep the questions coming too.
I mean, I can keep on rolling with a presentation. The fastest way to get in touch with us is, go to the LGGcorp.com. There's a quick get started page. There'll be a short questionnaire, and then we can get things going that way. But if you don't have any more question, I'll be more than happy to move on with the presentation.
Oh, I did not know there was more presentation. That's
Oh.
great. All right, let me knock out these additional questions then. All right, I'm keeping up, Gaston. I'm keeping up. Let's see what I got here. Marianne wants to know, can you recommend a logistics team in China? Which I'm guessing, are you doing some of that now yourself?
Yeah, we have and I'll explore this in the future next slide, and maybe that will make a lot more sense. But the short of the answer is yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get more info on that in the next couple slides, Marianne. And the one thing I'll mention there too is keep in mind that your supplier a lot of the times can do many of the things a prep center would do as well. So something else to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Faye, what's up, Faye? She said, Faye's got two questions here. She said, do you use China? Oh, we already got that one. Here's the second question. Is it possible for us to set up a Chinese Alipay account for 1688 payments?
It's a little tricky there. I've tried actually. I thought that spending all that time was gonna get me an edge. It's just beyond just setting an account, right? They actually track you with your IP. I guess you can have a VPN, but it's getting very, very complicated now. Just to find stuff that you would find on Alibaba. I think the benefit of 1688 as opposed to Alibaba, it's first of all, you have less people looking at the same thing, and there is an arbitrage in the prices between the two marketplace. But I'm not I'm not a big fan of 1688. A lot of the product that you find there is very, very reminiscent of stuff that you found at the Yiwu market. It's really low quality stuff there. It might be cheap, but it's also cheaply made. But the short answer is that you can trick them with a VPN. It used to work. I don't know if it still works, but I'm sure there's ways around it. Yes.
All right. So some complication there, but yeah, feel free, Faye, if you have any additional questions. Anna has a question here, and Gaston, feel free to answer this. If your presentation goes over this, then we'll skip this question for now. But
Sure.
Anna asked, can you talk about ways you can improve margins on existing products?
No, absolutely. This is why I'm here today. There's multiple ways, right? I mean, the first and foremost, I think the price from the factory or whoever or whatever you're getting your prices from, you probably have several middlemen in the between. Especially if you use Alibaba, right? A lot of people use Alibaba, think that they have a source or that person works for the factory, whatever. They're just people that is sourcing, so to speak, for you. So that's a few points there. Not communicating and effectively negotiating with the factory. That's also a few points there. Not finding those little workaround, like I mentioned earlier, using that small mold. That saved the guy $6,000 just on that. Let's see what else. Not having your logistics streamlined. Not just using the factory because you don't want to find a shipping agent in China or use people like DHL or whatever. That's a big cost right there, logistics. Let's see what else. Those are the main one, I think. And we can get more technical. We had plenty of clients that we made product improvement for them where we just streamline how things are made. A very good example here is contract manufacturing. So the big part there is what material are you using, what kind of machine you're running on, and what is the machine's runtime. All this affect your cost, right? The material, we won't be able to switch that because I don't want to get stuff cheaper by switching to a crappier material. But if you don't streamline or optimize that, the way of making that part, you can double or triple that machine time. And machine time is really expensive. That's a big part of how that affects your cost. So hopefully those few things give you a good idea on how to reduce cost.
I think so. And of course, keep in mind another way to increase margin is the things Gaston talked about. For instance, switching over to TT is, if you've been paying other payment methods, that generally is going to save you a few points right there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like Gaston talked about, cutting out your prep center, there's another few points. So it is possible to bump your margins, 10, 15% just through the optimization of those things too.
Absolutely.
So lots of different ways to do it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Couple more questions before you are good to go into phase 2 of the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Anna asked a question, good question here. Do you personally ever use Plastique or TransferWise or OFX or any of these types of international payment companies?
I have in the past, and as a currency trader, it works, but it's so freaking expensive. And this is not even the part that I'm upset about. A lot of them are really shady. They don't disclose all the ins and out of your transaction. When I did one trade a while back, a long time ago, and I called the trade desk, and knowing a little bit about currency transfer, I've asked them some very simple questions. I was like, how do you guys make your money? What do you charge me, and what are my rate? I'll be like, oh well, we only charge like $5 per transaction. I was like, $5? How do you guys make a living? And I was like, well, you must be making your living through the differential of the exchange rates then. So what is the exchange rate? And the guy took my question literally and gave me the freaking exchange rate of the day. And I didn't catch that. So when I completed the trade, I was like, wait. That's not the rate we agreed on. They were like, oh no, I just gave you the rate of the day. We need to tackle our margin on that. I was like, oh. So, my guess, he was playing dumb and I got played. But never again. If you guys are going to use TT, just do it with your bank, right? I'm with PNC, Chase, and Bank of America. All three of them have a very good way to send money over. And my fee for sending foreign current exchange with PNC specifically, which gives you the best rate, in my opinion, is $28. Doesn't matter the amount.
All right. I will have to look into PNC then.
Oh yeah, good relationship with those
America. Bank of America is outrageously expensive.
Oh, I know.
Faye has a question. Do you have any logistics companies that you recommend for the blind shipments?
Honestly, it's not a secret service or anything like that, but it is not something that they advertise, right? You're not gonna find on their websites, oh well, we do blind shipment. They'll know what you're talking about. I have my sources that we use for the LGG Corp, and that was hand-me-downs from my family's business. I've tried to explain this to what was it called, Flexport, and they just like looked at me like I was crazy. Like why do you want to do that? Blah 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 blah. So they didn't really get it. So the short answer is yeah, I have to look into it. All the people I work with will do that no matter what. They know exactly what I'm talking about. But yes, if the question is, can I provide, names and whatnot? Yes, we can work something out.
All right, Faye. So that is that one. Sorry, I got stuck in the question box. All right, so I got like 3 questions left, and then get into the second part. Anna's got a quick one here. Yeah. The red envelope method. I love how we're calling that the envelopes. Method now. When is it good to do that? Is it okay to do that around the Chinese New Year, or are there better times?
Well, so there's 2 things, right? I mean, there's red envelope. Here's how I look at it. There are like red envelope occasion, right? So birthday is one, New Year's is one, Valentine's Day is another one, Singles Day is another one, or when people travel. What I'm talking about is actually using the red envelope concept, but to streamline your experience with your vendor, get a deeper relationship, right? Is there a bad time to do it? I mean, no. When is it a bad time to receive money. I don't think there's any bad time. Just make sure that when you do it, just make sure that it's an appropriate time, right? I mean, it'll be weird if you guys just met and you say hello and she gives you a quote and you send her a red envelope. She'll be like, "Who is that person? I'm gonna have a good time, working with that person." So just make sure that it is the right time. I mean, I don't think there's a bad time though.
Cool. All right, I got 2 questions about Alipay for you, and
Sure.
then we can move on to the second part of your presentation.
Sure.
Faye says Alipay needs a Chinese bank account linked with a Chinese telephone number. Any way to get a Chinese number outside of China?
No. Well, first of all, this is news to me. I haven't done Ali trade in a very long time. When I did the Ali trade with my my Alibaba account, that was not a requirement. I could use an American credit card, and I was paying like 4%, or I could link my my checking account, my business checking account directly into Alipay, and I think they were charging like a flat fee of like 40 or $50. So you telling me that you need a specific account and phone number, this is news to me. Again, I haven't used AliTrade in a long time, nor do I recommend it. Well, given what I know, right? Your question is, can you get a Chinese phone number? This is really freaking hard. Each the government actually keep tracks of how many phone number you can have. Like for us, when we're on a visa, when you hit China, they take your passport, they take your visa number, and you only allowed one SIM card. And I tried this, right? So like, when I went back to China, I was like, oh, I lost my SIM card. Can I get another number? They ran my visa number and my passport number, and it was a big no. And I was like, no, you can only have one. Blah blah blah. This is illegal. Now, are there other ways to get you phone numbers? Sure, there are, but it's not streamlined. It's not common.
Cool.
But if
All
that's
right,
what you
I
need,
got
Faye,
one.
if that's what you need, you want a phone number, we can definitely facilitate that for you. If that's all you need.
And Anna wanted to ask, is there any other way to use a credit card with a supplier outside of that?
Let's see. So there's third-party payment method, like I mentioned, is super expensive. Honestly, PayPal is probably your best bet. It's relatively cheap, and it's pretty well recognized, and you'll have a layer of protection there. If you want, let me think outside the box here. You
You
could,
also have Plastique. There's a
yeah,
company called Plastique,
yeah,
Plastiq.
I'm very familiar with them. That's a company that allows you to use your credit card for whatever invoice you got. You can even pay your rent with a credit card if you choose to, but you add on, like, I believe it's 3%, 2 or 3%. Um,
Yeah, it's a few points.
Yeah, I
But
hate.
that is one method to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that will even if your supplier doesn't, again, you have to think about how much that is worth to you. But
Right, absolutely.
But yeah, that's definitely I think that's probably the cheapest method to pay with a credit card on anything. So like gas, so you could pay your rent, you could pay anything. That would usually be a check or a wire with a credit card with that, but you're going to pay a fee.
How do
Not
you
terrible.
how do you I mean, I've never used plastic for that particular reason, but do you have any recourse to that? Like, meaning that if I use my credit card to buy something in the US, I can always fight that if I so choose to. Can you do that when you go through a company like Plastic? Do you?
I mean, I have to imagine you can still call your credit card and charge it back. I haven't tried to.
Uh-huh.
Ben and Peter use Plastique like crazy. They pay literally everything, like every wire transfer, every payroll, taxes. It all goes through
Really?
Plastique. Yes, and dude, if you get in touch with Peter and ask him about this,
Yeah.
he's got it down right now where he's paying 1.5% to Plastique and
Uh-huh.
getting 2% back in points.
Yeah. There's no
So,
way. Yeah. If you want to play the points game, yeah, I guess you could do that.
yeah, but I mean there's to be clear, I don't think everyone should go out and do that. It works for them because that's all Peter does in that partnership.
Oh no, it's a lot of
Is
fun.
work on that.
Definitely
Yeah.
do it. It's a lot of fun. If you use the right credit card, And I mentioned that earlier. There's this card that I use called the Chase Sapphire Reserve. It does come with a huge annual fee, but I think you can get up to like 3% on certain transaction. And yeah, you can pay that transaction from Plastic and still get points that you will use eventually. Yeah, so that's not bad. I'll definitely hit him up on that.
Yeah, and Plastique, Irene just checked it out. She said it costs 2.5% now. So yeah, I mean that costs money. Yeah, Peter's got it set up in a sweet way with like a promotional account where he's paying 1.5. But yeah, so Plastique definitely not like recommended for every transaction, but specifically for Anna's question there, you can pay any supplier with a credit card with Plastique if you're willing to pay that fee. And also, there are suppliers out there that will take credit card themselves too. So sometimes that will be an option. You just got to ask your supplier and kind of explore with them, in my opinion.
Definitely.
All right. Questions are now piling up. So we're going to knock these out and then give you the floor once more.
Sure.
Teresa asked, can you pay 3070 with PayPal?
3070? Oh,
can you split?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can pay. Well, you mean pay the 30 using PayPal and then pay the 70 using PayPal, or like have some kind of weird arrangement?
I mean, might as well answer it with both variables.
I guess. I mean, if your payment term with your suppliers that you give them a down payment of 30% and then followed by 70%, yeah, sure. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. It'll be the same as paying the full. I mean, I'm not saying pay the full thing, but mathematically it works out to be the same, right? Because it's a set fee with PayPal. So like if your total invoice number is like $1,000, they'll have to pay 4% on that. That you split it into $300 and 700 or a flat 1,000. It comes in play when you do a TT, right? Because it's a flat fee. So if you really want to streamline this, you want to do only one transaction, right? So that way, that $28 you divide by 1,000, you have a very low cost. But no, PayPal doesn't matter. You can split into 50 payments if you want. They might not like it. But...
Yeah, and it's worth saying, you can do whatever you want. Like if you and your supplier, if I called up one of my supplier and said like, hey, I'm going to pay 30% via Western Union and 70% via helicopter drop, they would be like, you're out of your mind, but all right, as long as we get our money. So there's definitely no right or wrong way to do payment methods. There's definitely, and terms. There's definitely things that are more common and kind of standard operating procedure and best practices. But there's no limitation to it. Like if you want to airdrop the money to the supplier, they'll take it.
Absolutely. And then you bring a very good point, right? Payment terms. That one thing that I did not mention. In the US, it's pretty standard to get like net 30, net 15. But in China, it's really freaking hard. I mean, like we get terms, but like that's after like quarter century of working with them. So don't expect to be able to get terms right off the bat. I mean, I get my 6-7 figure seller that asks me all the time. It's like, hey, how can you negotiate terms with us? Blah 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 blah. Yeah, sure, but it's just very very hard, and that just speaks for the difference in culture, right? I mean, I think where we live here is everybody has I myself have 7 credit cards for various reasons, but over there they just need to get paid up front or 70 or 30. Very seldomly they'll extend you net 15. It can be done, but it's very hard. There are other ways to combat this if this is what you guys want to hear about and better streamline your cash flow and cash management, but terms ain't gonna be one of them.
Cool. Fong has a question here, and I might have missed this. I think this was on your slide. She said, "Is Ali Trade the same as Alibaba Trade Assurance?"
Yeah, I'm sorry, I call them Ali Trade.
That's what I figured.
Same.
All right, cool. All right, last question before phase 2 of the presentation. Jared has a question. He said, when finding and sourcing products at the Canton Fair, how do you know the product would be in demand and sell? Are the products sourced from the Canton Fair typically in the beginning stage of the product life cycle, or what?
This is a pretty complex question if you really think about it, right? So you're asking basically if a product is going to be hot or in demand or whatnot. This is when your product research comes in play, right? Will does an amazing job talking about how to find stuff on Alibaba or at the fair. Um, it's really tricky because a lot of time, those Chinese supply, they're also smart people, right? They understand what a product life cycle is, right? So they could be just tweaking it a little bit and then reset that cycle. So um, best way I found out is know your field, right? If you're gonna sell something, make sure that you are personally vested in it, so whatever your hobbies are. If you've seen this before or whatnot, it'll make things a lot easier. And I think that's the truly, honestly, the only way to know if something's gonna be hot or not. You personally know. Nobody's gonna be able to gauge. Oh, this is on the Canton Fair or whatnot. What I'm saying is that by the time anything hits the Canton Fair floor, you're competing with everybody else. Everybody else that is there got eyes as well. They all be seeing the same thing you're seeing. So I like to be a little bit more covert. I like to improve my own product, the product that I found that we're already selling well. Make those improvements and find those dedicated supply that'll make this for me that nobody would really know, right? Speed to market. You be the only one that has the hot item already, but you personally, since you're invested, you are making those improvements. I hope that answered your question. Like I said, this topic is pretty complex.
It's a broad one. It's a broad one. And that's why it's so powerful too. Like when we take people to the Canton Fair for Sourcing Summit, there's two primary reasons that we like to take people that we know they're going to see an immediate huge ROI. And that is one, they want to expand their product line. So they already have customers and they have the ability to sell those customers things, right? We talk about the product pathway in the course and how there's kind of like, if you think about if I'm selling ultimate frisbee or something, there's going to be kind of introductory items that people buy before they have any relationship with a brand. So if you can get one of those sales and you can kind of build a customer base and people have this knowledge about your brand and what you're all about, and you have the ability to contact those customers, now you can start selling more competitive things and be able to compete. Like what one of our I make probably $500,000-$600,000 a year selling shampoo. I could not sell shampoo just outright, right? I can't just list shampoo on Amazon and start selling it. I have to develop a customer base and then sell the shampoo to that customer base after I have the relationship with them. So that's one way you're going to go make money at the Canton Fair. And then the other one is going and finding suppliers, consolidating suppliers. If you're selling a few different products, find a supplier that can sell all your products.
Absolutely.
And find better suppliers and start to cut out middlemen and things like that.
Absolutely.
And feel free to add to that, Gaston. Obviously, I think there's not many guests that come on that have been to the Canton Fair more than I have, but you may have.
Well, it's a family obligation here, but you're absolutely right. Here's the truth about business and being an entrepreneur, right? You need to be able to think outside the box. Like really, where do you get an edge? Like, how do you beat your competitor? Why are you better at what they do, and how do you beat them at their own game? So whatever Will mentioned, this is one way of doing it. It is very effective, obviously. But when you are at the fair, like really focus on what you're trying to accomplish, right? Don't just go to go, right? I mean, a little bit of myself when I went, I told the whole group, and I think everybody would attest to that. I went on vacation, honestly, and I went to get dim sum. But if you are focused on this investment that you're making for your business, right? Have a very clear goal. If you're already selling something, yeah, find a bigger supplier, a medium-sized supplier that can make better product or whatever your industry is. but is by forging new relationship, and even talking to your supplier, right? See what they're making, see what their focus are, see ask them what they're shipping to other people, and through word of mouth, you can guess and have an idea what the trends are, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think so. All right, cool. I have the actual last question before you can give the second part of this presentation.
Sure.
And I think the second part of the presentation is just as valuable, if not more valuable, guys. So it's going to be a fun-filled second half here. I'm sorry, Lada has a great question here. Oh, she just wanted to know, do you, and feel free if you're not comfortable sharing, obviously, but she said, Gaston said he's selling, several products and categories on Amazon. What products and categories does he sell in?
Sure, I can talk in broad stroke. I started in the kitchen niche when I was selling on Amazon. So this is where I stayed, and it's still doing fine. It's a lot of fun still. Um, so I don't know what edge or benefit they would give you to tell you what I sell, but Amazon is kitchen, and I've taken several brands off Amazon to truly build a customer database, just to have more control, right? I mean, as you guys know, I mentioned this. Amazon is just a distribution channel. Not actually, it's not even a good distribution channel. It's not your customer. You're selling on Amazon's behalf. You're just offloading stuff there. So I quickly started another brand with other product just outside of Amazon, and that's in the outdoors category. So hopefully, we can find some value in that answer.
I think that definitely answers the question. All right, cool. Well, that is the final question for the first half. So why don't you go ahead, my friend, and I will hang out in the question box with you guys. Feel free to drop in any additional questions about all of that, although I think we got pretty much everything. And then obviously feel free to drop in questions as Gaston continues to drop the knowledge bombs. Carry on, my friend.
So hopefully by now I've given you guys a taste of what I do, and hopefully all the tips and tricks I provided would be valuable when you guys are trying to get stuff from China. So a little bit more about myself. See, I mentioned this earlier, but actually I was born in this business. This is me at age 3. I'm already killing it. I have my first international empire in 1988. And here is myself the very next day. I'm closing my very, very first deal, international deal, of course. But joke aside, my family has actually been in this game, importing, exporting, making the stuff that we're trying to do, since the mid 70s. Things were very different back then, but it's just the same game, with a different twist. So we made it work. And earlier I mentioned to you guys that I fall back in love with my family business, but I added on my own twist. This is what I mean. I'm leveraging our fully vetted and vast professional network from Asia, right? And I'm adding my technical expertise to it. Our network comprised of all kind of vendors, manufacturers from virtually all industries, and we have several logistics hubs. I think it's either 6 or 7. We have some logistics hubs there, and over the year we maintain an excellent relationship, business and professional. I mean, personal and professional, with all of our partners. And this is like over 30 years of cultivating. And this collective force, I often refer that as my real yellow pages. If I need something, we got it. And the technical twist I bring on to my family business is my engineering and project management background. For those that don't know, my formal training is actually engineering. So prior to the LGG Corp, I was working as a project manager for eight or so years. And from my childhood picture, you guys probably guessed that I'm culturally inclined. I speak the language. I was raised by those people, and then I can connect and understand them more on a personal level. I just have less obstacle when I interact with them. If you look at it this way, right? I mean, you guys probably have to break ice on first dates or first initial encounter. I break iceberg when it comes down to working with the Chinese. So in a nutshell, my technical expertise paired along with my strong family connection allows me to make virtually any good, in any industry, both domestically and internationally, with the highest standard of quality and level of care. These days you hear a lot of white privileges, right? Well, these are my yellow privileges. So, what does the LGG Corp offers more specifically? So we break it down into three business core, right? So there's the engineering and professional services. We can take care of all your design needs. If you need drafting, prototyping, modeling, that can be easily accommodated. But some people need a little bit more. They need like product studies or testing or just engineering in general for what they have. We can offer that as well. I also offer project management services. Some people need help just to get their product from A to Z. We can do that. And we also offer some very targeted business services, right? So it could be anything from, oh, I need an Amazon webpage or, photography and all that. We have partners that work in those field and we can offer that. But even to the very specialized service, like, federal tax credit, we have a few partners that actually do that for clients. But this is like, pretty complex and pretty high end. Like, if you have a large company that does a lot of R&D, we offer those services. The next core of my business is we do manufacturing and sourcing services, right? So we can definitely set up manufacturing for you, for your needs, small and large. We cater to many, many different industry. We can do anything from sewn good to injection molded parts. I do a lot of CNC machining, and we use a lot of exotic composite material too, which is pretty hard to work with. And we also help with sourcing. I hate to call myself a sourcing agent because this is not what I do. But for the stuff that are hard to source, beyond Alibaba, beyond 1688, and we can still help and remain very competitive. And the last leg to my business is the logistic and warehousing services. We can help with international and domestic shipments, like, within China or in the US or even in Europe. We also have been asked to provide courier services. So if you need to get your stuff from A to B in China, like really, really fast, like the same day, we can also do that. And obviously, we provide the storage services and prep center like services. I hate to call it prep center because I just think that this is ridiculous. But if you need assistance with those tasks, we can help as well. So the next thing I want to talk about and show you guys is a case study, right? So like concretely, what have I done for my past clients? So for the first case is a client that has been in the textile and fashion industry. Prior to interacting with us, this is a brief overview of what that client life was like. Their setup and mold fee was about $13,000. Their every other month logistics fee was $8,000, and their price unit was $25. And over the year or two they were in business, their supplier actually raised their MOQ from 300 to 1,000. So you can see that that client was not a happy camper. But after interacting with us, this is what we managed to do for them. The actual setup cost should have been actually $8,000, which we actually refunded after they hit a certain production number. Logistics was a funny thing. It was a miscue. That customer knew nothing about getting stuff from China to the US, and all they really wanted is all-inclusive services. Right? They didn't want to deal with any of the custom, no LTL, no excess code, no nothing. So the vendor, their manufacturer, just took the path of least resistance. Right? Like, oh hell, we'll just send everything express. So they were sending 30 carton express via DHL or FedEx, and it was $8,000. Thank God the product profit margin was pretty high, but so they could stomach that. But this is no fun. Why pay more when you don't have to? So we end up doing a door-to-door service for that client, and using C route, it was only $2,000 every other month. And we still managed to reduce their price and optimize their business just by doing simple things or things that we mentioned earlier by 25%. without sacrificing on quality. This is one thing that I would not tolerate. I will not provide a better price by cheaping out on the material or skipping a few steps. We don't do that. And the MOQ remained at 500, and that will not change. The only way it would change if it will go higher, and we can go and renegotiate prices. So this is my first case. Second case, this client is into the medical device manufacturing. Here's the premises. This part is actually a pretty high-end milled stainless steel parts with many layers of complexity. It is for the medical field, so the requirement was super high with high tolerances. The client was actually using U.S. firms. He was getting quotes and getting his stuff made inside the United States. It took him about 2 weeks to get a quote, and after accepting the quote, he was promised a 2-week production time. After week 5, and 1 week after the promised date, still no parts, right? So this guy is sitting on POs from his customer. He can fill these orders, so it's like 5 weeks later and he still can sell anything, right? People are calling him constantly. He's like, hey, where's the part? We thought you could make this and blah, 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 blah. So you can imagine that his blood pressure was going through the roof. So after interacting with us, this is what we found. First, I think that he was getting long lead time because his production method or his drawing was not optimized for manufacturing. So we addressed that. The second thing, after we issued the new drawing, we managed to get him a quote upon accepting those changes within 48 hours. And since he was late, he was getting an express service from us, right? We had to make everything fast. Everything was, sent next day and whatnot. We still managed to get him a 30% overall savings. And the best part is that client actually got those parts in 12 days from the day he paid us. Not 12 working days, 12 calendar days. So that's case number 2. Case number 3, and I think this will resonate with you guys a little bit more. This client wanted to improve a product, an Amazon product. The product already existed, but this client was so familiar with that niche and that industry. He had a lot of improvement and a bunch of new unique selling feature that he wanted to incorporate. But here was some of the problem, right? So this client was not technical savvy, right? So he had a vision, but couldn't really find a way on how to make it happen. He tried communicating with China, but a dozen email back and forth, and simple ideas still couldn't get conveyed. And he tried some of the negotiation, but it was terrible. I'm sure you guys have experienced that. If you guys try to negotiate with China in English, they'll play the penny games with you. Oh, $5 and it's $4.99, and you play this game. It's just a huge waste of time. And when they finally managed to kind of agree on a price, the setup fee and the MOQ was just crazy high. So, we got together. We, after our consultation, this is what we managed to do for that particular client. Well, first of all, we provided several designs, right? And with many different manufacturing strategies for him to choose. At the end of the day, this is his product. We want to make sure that, he'll be happy with what we can make for him. Obviously, all the communication was streamlined by us. He no longer had to communicate with Asia directly, thus alleviating some of those, most of those communication problems. And we managed to hit the target price for that customer. Setup, MOQ, everything was great for him. The one thing that we add value to this customer is, we plan the few steps ahead for him, right? He wanted to sell this stuff on Amazon, but he had no idea about, logistics plan on how to get this stuff to the US or how to get it to Amazon. What is an inspection? Why do we do an inspection and all this stuff? So we just went above and beyond for that customer. So now, you guys are probably thinking, like, so what do we offer and how do we do business and what can we do for you? We always start with a free consultation, right? This is primarily for chemistry check. Just make sure that, we're a good fit for each other. Make sure that we're the right partner for you, and then using us would be the right time. So one of our account manager we'll get in touch to gather all the information about your business, talk about, where you're at currently, where is it that you're trying to go, what's your current processes, and what you're trying to get out of us. And, that call usually takes about 30 minutes. And we actually have Bruce on the line that do a lot of this for us. And the next step, if we actually we are a good fit, we provide what we call the operation audit and report. So this is way, way, way more than the initial conversation, right? So we take a deep dive of your business, scrutinize every aspect of this, and kind of what Anna asked earlier. How do we actually save money? How do we streamline our operation? And this is what we do. So we talk about everything. We talk about your product. We see what stage they're on. How is the design looking? What is your manufacturing process? What's your requirement? Volume? Do you have any packaging requirement? Do you have any packaging design at all? What's your distribution channel? How do we optimize those? How do we take advantage of every opportunity? How are you doing your importation? Do you have somebody that clears your custom? Do you have a freight forwarder? What's your logistics routes like? So we really dive down into your numbers, and we really end up knowing with you, obviously, what is it that you're trying to do. And we look at all the little deficiencies and all the fat that can be trimmed, and at the end of the day, maximize your profit margin, make you more money, spend less money. And this is typically a 3 to 4 hour call. And as a deliverable, we give you a summary and an audit of all we found as far as deficiency and how to help you get more mileage out of your business. We really visit all the venues that where we can save you money. So how do we charge for that? So we typically have two sizes. We see people with business with one SKU. We charge $9.98 for that. Or if you have larger operation between 2 to 5 SKU, and we charge $19.98 for that. But for the members of the Startup Brother, I talked to Will about this, and we want to work out a deal. As being an alumni here. And earlier I mentioned that we Chinese love the number 8. So to all the Startup Brother members, and only for you guys, we'll apply the fortune discount, and that will bring down your price to $8.88 and $18.88 respectively. So if you guys been paying attention, a large portion of this presentation was about long-term relationship and really working with your suppliers and give back. And we truly embrace that here at the LGG Corp. So that $8.88 and $18.88 that you pay to get that complete business audit, if you ever employ the LGG Corp to act upon those deficiencies for you and streamline your business, we'll refund that audit report fee. That $8.88 and $18.88, we'll refund that against your next 4 invoices with us. Now, we have clients that's all they need, right? They need that independent assessment. They have sufficient experience. They establish long-term relationship with Asia already, and they just want a report, and they take it from there. But typically, the mass majority of our clients are looking for more, right? They want more than just the assessment. They have more than 1 or 2 weaknesses in their operation, and they look to really streamline their business and address and optimize every single deficiencies. And for those clients, this is what we offer. We want to offer a complete solution and be a one-stop shop, so to speak. We also have custom packages. If you need a specific need in your channels or something very, very detail oriented and don't want the full treatment, you can always send us an email, get in touch with us, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you. So don't delay, get started today. Our team are on standby, and you can get started by going to our website, the lggcorp.com.
Cool. And I have that link in the chat box for you guys. We'll also include it with the replay, of course, and very clever discount, the fortune discount, like that. Good stuff. All right, cool. Well, I have a few more questions for you, and then we will start to wrap things up. Gaston, do you want to show your website really quick and show what people need to do on there to actually get in touch with you? And the other thing, too, guys, Gaston is active in the Facebook group. So, Gaston's not probably going to be doing a free consulting anytime soon. But if you need to get in touch with Gaston, that's another way to get in touch with them. Make sure it's kind of a right fit for you before doing this.
Right, right, absolutely. So we just I'm just having our guy just started building this website, but just go to lggcorp.com. It's just pretty easy. Click on get started, and then we'll get some basic information from you guys, and we'll be in touch and schedule the call for you guys. And we use Calendly. It's very easy. We can schedule that 15 minutes or 30-minute call, and if you proceed with the audit, we can schedule that as well.
Yeah, and I know, Gaston, you're working with Tanya Daly right now, I believe, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and Tanya, I think, has gone through 2 different sourcing companies before ending up with yours, and she's been pretty happy so far. I know you've kind of sporadically done some services for people in the community over the past few years.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just wanted to mention that too. There's a lot of people in the community that have worked with Gaston over the last few years and just had a great time. Nothing but great things have been said, and I think Gaston now is setting up the website, doing the forms, and kind of taking on new clients. So this is your opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Let me knock out. Irene wants to know where LGG Corp is located, and I guess where you're located.
Ooh, it's getting personal. So as I mentioned, I personally stay in the U.S. I have a resident in both Indiana and Atlanta, Georgia and Indiana. And our overseas operation, we have operation in Guangzhou, Dongguan, and Shenzhen. So I hope that.
And I know your family's been doing business over there for a long time, correct?
Ooh, yeah, super long time. We started in the 70s, and we started with that company on that photos. That was the real first deal that we made, and really start making us a name for ourselves. We started with the office supply calculators, to be more precise. Back then in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you own that calculator, it's probably one of ours.
Robert said, signing up tonight. Good man.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Gaston, can you bring back that slide really quick? I just want to see what you're calling your packages.
Yep. Let's see.
Wherever it went.
Yep. So what we do is an operation audit and report. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the main value for you guys in this is I wanna kind of line out for people who's this right for, who's this not right for, when should I go for this, and I think the big takeaway, and Gaston, I'll let you either correct me or add to this. I think the big value for you guys is going to be the operation audit report is going to really help you to increase margins on your existing products. I think that is, and it's going to be pretty easy to kind of calculate what type of ROI you're going to see from the package, because over 3, 6, whatever months, you're going to know how much more your margins are going to increase and directly know kind of how much that's going to put in your pocket as profit. So, so I think that the main thing I'd be looking for here is increasing margins. But Gaston, correct me if I'm wrong and add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole goal is here, like, we don't make that much money when you charge, $888 and $1888, right? This is not the goal here. We want to strive for a long term business deal, right? Is getting you that going, right? If you don't see an immediate return on your investment, if we don't alleviate 20 or 25%, we don't have a case. This is why we have no problem, giving you that 888 or 1888 back over the next 4 invoices. We have to charge something, because a lot of people, they're just, let me call you and pick your brain, and you do all this. You spend 5 or 6 hours with those people, and maybe several times a week, and nothing, right? So this commitment of 888 and 1888 is really a down payment onto what we can do for your operation. And the take home message is to streamline all the deficiency that you have, save you money and time, be that one-stop shop for the e-commerce need.
Awesome. All right, cool. Guys, start dropping in any final questions. We are getting close to the 2-hour mark, so we'll make this the final call for questions. I have a few questions lined up for Gaston, And yeah, guys, drop in those questions. Faye has our next question here.
Sure.
She said, do you, and she has a few questions here, so I'm going to break these up a little bit. Do you do TT on the very first order? And I know you somewhat answered that. She has a follow-up here. How do you validate vendors to know if they're trustworthy? And let me read you this next part too. So she says, how do I validate vendors to know if they're trustworthy? I negotiated with a supplier who offers PayPal and TT, but I didn't want to go ahead with it because it's my first order. For PayPal, I understand that it doesn't provide protection for private label products, only protects non-custom products. Do you have any comments on that? I can give some insight on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's tag this one together. So she's bringing a very valid point, right? How do we vet overseas operation? And this is without giving away too much. This is something actually I'm working with several financial institutes here in the U.S. This is why my relationship with PNC has been growing over the year. We are trying to establish a way somewhat to standardize those problems, right? And I'm also working with financial institution overseas, and we're discussing how to alleviate clients of this fear. In the US, there are ways. You can get a credit report, you can get a Dun and Bradstreet number, blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's just if they're gonna run, they're gonna run, right? So we're trying to create a system here to how to better gauge that business, right? And those service that you found on WeChat or whatever, oh, we'll go do a factory audit. There's so many ways to bypass those and pass in flying colors with just having a shed. It's not even funny, right? So to answer your question, like how do you gauge trust with somebody that you never done business with? I think it's a trick question, right? The answer is you cannot, because you never done business with them, right? For me, do I do TT with the suppliers that I met for the very first time? Well, 99% of my supplier, it's either uncle or auntie. So we met before. We probably ate together. But if it was a supplier that I just found at the fair or whatever, no, hell no. I'll never TT any amount of money. Like, you can't really trust somebody until you trust somebody, right? So this is my take home message.
And it is a good one. I don't have anything to add to that. Oh, on the PayPal protection. Yeah, customized products PayPal won't cover. So PayPal is mainly used for samples. So that's really the only thing we recommend using PayPal for is samples. Sometimes you'll use it on an order or two after that, but mainly just let's get this deal done quickly. I'm just going to PayPal you the money, send me the goods, and that's it. So
if you're gonna do that, might as well use WeChat Pay. It's gonna be a lot faster.
yeah, that's where a lot of it's going, exactly. And it's not even that. Like, I would be fine most of the time personally TTing that amount of money. $100 for a sample for a business my size, it does not matter at all. So I would TT it, but it's actually slower for me to TT it because then they have to wait for it to clear into their bank. And there's just all these different things that can happen. Whereas with PayPal, I'm just going to send you the money via PayPal and you're going to send the goods. It's very simple. It's very streamlined. So PayPal, there's other benefits outside of that, but mainly just used for samples. And yeah, absolutely. By the time you're customizing products, we don't, we're going to be progressing to different payment methods at that point for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did not know that was the intent of the question. Like, for small amount.
Oh no, there was two questions in there. You got the first half.
Right. Well, for small amount, absolutely, right? I mean, use PayPal or use WeChat Pay, absolutely. There's no point of getting involved with a TT because it's a lot more involved than logging into your PayPal account. And if you're only gonna send $100 and you're gonna pay $30 in fees, and the receiving party is gonna pay another $30, I mean, by the time the money hit the bank, there's no money left.
Yes, a good point as well. All right, cool. So we definitely got that question. Marianne said, would you say Alibaba suppliers are the best way to start? So interesting question. And Gaston, I think you're definitely qualified to answer as someone who, has been in the community since 2015. So
Yeah.
what do you think on that?
Let me tell you this, Marianne. I mean, the best way to start is to start. So, jump in. It doesn't matter. If it's not the most streamlined business model or product, whatever, it gets you in the game, right? Just be smart when you do that. Don't bet the farm, like I mentioned earlier. It is actually a pretty good way to start to find product on Alibaba. Um, I think the second step from that is probably go with Will and his group. They do a banging job at the Canton Fair. I mean, I personally has been there. I was more of a tourist, but I still attended. I was there. I paid whatever the trip was, and there's a lot of value there, and it gives you a totally different perspective of this business too, right? You'll be able to better evaluate the stuff that you see on Alibaba. When you go to the Canton Fair, you'll be assaulted with all kind of new stuff, right? So you'll pick up trends. You can see like, oh, these people are making something truly unique. It's good quality. I haven't seen that on Alibaba, blah, 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 right? So I'd say start with Alibaba or whatever way to get your product, to get your business going. Don't wait, don't delay. And the next step up from that is, take Will on his proposal and go to the trip. I think you have like an April trip, right?
Yes, we do, Gaston. April 19th through the 27th, and the prices will be going up soon. You can go to sourcingsummit.com for that. We are going to come out with a second package with that, so there will be kind of a lower price package for those that don't want to stay at the Ritz-Carlton and want to stay kind of at a cheaper hotel and just want to hang out with the group. So we're going to have a lower package for that. But the package where you're staying at the Ritz-Carlton with the entire group and all the mentors and the speakers for the entirety of the event, that is going to go up drastically by several $1,000s. So sourcingsummit.com. Feel free, guys, to go check that out. Email us or chat with us if you have any questions on it. And I appreciate you shouting that out.
No, but I'll even offer a third package. That I have a whole story with the startup brother, and if it's appropriate, I'll share that. But here's the third package. I stay with my supplier, so it's free.
Yes, and that's an awesome method too. I think people really underestimate the power of just getting over there and getting it done. In business in general, this is a huge problem. People feel like they have to act certain ways and that certain things are right or wrong, and they're always trying to act the right way. If you just stop trying to act the right way and actually just try to build the freaking business, what people do, look what like Elon Musk had to do when his production chain was falling apart, his quality's falling apart. He goes and sleeps on the factory floor, and he is there to oversee every single piece of the manufacturing. You're going to have a decent relationship with your supplier to do something like that. But holy cow, have I heard some crazy stories about people, increasing their margins by 10, 15% on one little thing because, they're sitting in the factory and they're like, you guys are morons. Why are you doing it this way? Just do it this way. So things like that, I think people really underestimate the power of things like that.
Yeah, and then, once you start establishing this relationship, whether it's with the Jennifer or the boss or whatever, I mean, it's so much easier to talk to them. I mean, I don't want to say that we are friends, but, it's definitely friendlier terms, and it's a lot easier to negotiate. You really have that connection with that supplier. When it's family member, it's family member. But, if they're stranger, it's just so much easier, right? I mean, I've visited some of the factory that we added to our network to try to vet. I mean, things were a lot easier after breaking bread with them, just by breaking bread, nothing else.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's see. Questions piling up. All right. I got one question from the first half, actually, that I missed. And We'll cover this one, and then we'll go into, I probably got 5 or 6 questions lined up for you.
Sure, no problem. I cleared the schedule for you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, and where are you at right now? Are you in Georgia or Indiana?
I'm in Indiana right now, and I'm leaving for Georgia on Monday. I have a few clients to meet, but this upcoming Sunday, I'm actually going to China.
Ah, very nice. Nice indeed. All right. Let's see what we got here. Fong has a question on the blind shipment.
Yep.
She said, so you don't recommend having the supplier put the ASIN number or product label on the package for you as they would figure out what you're selling on Amazon?
Yeah, so there's that's a great question, but I want to make sure that we clarify this a little bit, right? So their supplier that we work with, they know exactly what we're making, we have somewhat of a relationship with them. So yeah, they'll place the ASIN or whatever, right? So the other scenario is like, let's say that your product actually have like two manufacturer, for lack of better word. Let's say that somebody is making a part and the second factory is actually doing the final assembly, right? And maybe you trust, the second factory. So it's fine, use a blind, get the first factory to send it to your second one, the one that you trust, and have them apply the label there. And yes, the reason I'm using a blind shipment is I don't like overexposure, right? I mean, what benefit does it give you that they know that you are selling this on Amazon, Alibaba, whatever, right? That gives them more leverage. They can definitely research, what you're doing. Even if they don't leverage that and negotiate back on you. I mean, why give them the extra information, right? It's not like it's beneficial to you. And a more advanced tip is, as you grow this relationship with those vendor, maybe there'll be an appropriate time when you reveal this information and like, aha, I've been selling this stuff so well, maybe you can extend us like a net 30 or whatever. So be smart with this information. Don't overshare.
Cool. Great advice. Helen has a question on your packages. She said, with the package of one SKU, you provide consultation, operation, audit, and report.
Mm-hmm.
As part of that package, are you able to find us different manufacturers if needed, or help us figure out more affordable shipping from China to the US?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what the package is for, right? So not only we look at what you're making, but we want to see how you're making it. Why is it costing you X, Y, Z? And part of it is to say, hey, if we make this for you, it's gonna cost you 20% less. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Do not hold me to it. But this is the goal, to provide our starting, metric is to save 20-25% with your operation, and also we'll streamline your logistics. This is highly specialized. I mean, I don't even venture in and try to do it myself, right? I thank God that we have great people that do great things and great at what they do. I mean, logistic could be a nightmare. You guys are barely seeing the iceberg tip. Like when you guys involve somebody like Flexport or find a shipping agent, there's so much that goes on for a lot of reasons. I do not, don't try to do it yourself. I mean, this is, I think, the best advice I can give you. Don't try. You'll save a few bucks, but don't do it. When it goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong. Here's a quick story. This is one of the weirdest, I think, service I had to provide. I gave that initial consultation. I got this guy this, all these tips and trick, and this is why now we charge money. We gave this guy all the information, right? I mean, like, I honestly gave him the keys to my kingdom. And so he just wanted to do everything himself. And, more power to him, right? This is how you learn. That's what he wanted to do. So be it. So he figured everything out. He was stumbling every single step of the way, from selecting, from paying, to quality, to inspection, to everything. And finally, when he managed to get to the logistics part, he gets the nerve to call me. He's like, Gaston, it took me like 6 months, but, my stuff is on the boat. I'm getting this in like 30 days. I was like, 30 days, that's too long. But, I'm getting this stuff in 30 days. I was like, yeah, great. We glad that, we both learned from each other. I learned that, don't give everything for free. But he learned that, how to do this stuff, right? So I asked him, is like, hey, so who did your 10+2? Like, who filed for ISF? And this guy was like, what's that? I was like, well, that's something that you are responsible for, but usually your logistics people file for you. And what it is, for those that don't know, it's basically a document that tells the U.S. government what you're bringing over. It's really no big deal. You just have to do it, right? And the consequences are pretty severe. It's supposedly up to $15,000 in fine. And I knew this guy didn't know about this because he didn't know every single step. So I was like, I hope he took care of that, because that kind of one of those stumbling blocks. So I was like, hey, so what's that 10+2? Did you do it? He was like, no, what is that? So I explained to him what the report is for, and he thought I was actually messing with it. I was like, no, I'm dead serious. If your stuff left the pier already, you need to get on the phone right now, because you're supposed to file that 10+2 prior of your stuff leaving. And then he was in a panic. He calls, and nobody's gonna answer you. So he calls me back the next day and was like, hey, is there any way you can address this 10+2? And I was like, dude, you're supposed to do it prior. But let me make a few phone calls. So, we're with our logistics folks, and we managed to actually file this amendment for him. It is somewhat of an unconventional way of doing it like that. Like I said, this is a U.S. requirement, and you are supposed to file that before the boat leaves. And going back to Anna's question, when is it a good time to send red envelope? Now would be a great time.
Awesome. Got a question here from Matthew Leclerc, who does not make it on many of these sessions. So yeah, shout out from Matthew Leclerc. I think you guys were, yeah, I think you guys are quite familiar with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got a comment more than a question, but it's a valuable comment, so I wanted to say it out loud. He said, most suppliers are very honest with payments. Usually you'll see signs of strange activity if they're not honest. Initially make small payments and orders to slowly move up to large orders. If suppliers can only take Western Union, move on. And I think that sums it up pretty well.
Absolutely. I don't even know how to spell Western Union.
Teresa said, I'm ordering a sample. The vendor said I should pay the express fee, the freight collect. Do they choose the shipper, or do I organize this?
I'm gonna need a little bit more information, but my guess, if you're buying a small sample and it's freight collect, you probably will end up paying for the shipping. That's how normally people do that. I doubt that if it's a small sample, they are asking you to provide your own corporate account for express shipment, which is gonna be probably DHL or FedEx. So just from knowing what you told me, my guess is you're gonna end up paying like $50.
Yeah, and Teresa, let me send you the video in the course just in case you haven't seen it. I think you've seen this one, but I'll send it to you just in case. The video in the course on samples will go over this and explain kind of how the initial sample order works. If they do ask you for a shipping number or an account number, you're going to be asking them, hey, my boss said, let's just do it through your courier account, express shipping, lots of fun things in this video.
This is the best way of doing it, right? I mean, you can set up your own corporate account with DHL, like we have some. You do save a little bit of money, but like if you're just doing sample and you're trying to get something quick, pay whatever, well, not whatever, but within reason, pay whatever they're asking for and have them take care of it.
Yeah, very frequently, all you're paying is the express shipping fee.
And don't be surprised if the express shipping fee is, like you're like, what? It costs $100 to ship something like this, A lot of people get.
Yeah, I think the point where you need to start actually being concerned is, over $150, unless it's a pretty expensive product or heavy product. That's where you'd want to actually start being concerned about it. But check out that video, Teresa. Jared asks, how do you think suppliers know about new trends and new products and know to produce them before there's a lot of demand? I think this is a pretty high level question, but we could take this a really valuable way.
I love it. I mean, and here's my take on it, right? First of all, it's their business to know, right? If they're in the business of making kitchen stuff and they want to grow their own business, they better be, on the front page of that, right? And not only that, but like, all our suppliers, I mean, it's for lack of a better word, it's a big family that I have, and they all talk to each other. So, I mean, they're in the business of doing that. So that's how they identify trends, right? And then, among those big moves, like those obvious ones, they'll try new stuff, like, oh, let's try, like, let's say you make a pot of pen or whatever, maybe in the past, people are inserting copper core to better heat retain or whatever. Maybe we'll try a double core now, or, we'll try a new coating on the outside, or maybe put graphics on it. So, they'll try and nibble here and there to see what's catching on.
Yeah, I think people underestimate. I say this all the time. If you've only been in the United States for most of your life, you don't realize that we only see about, I would say, less than 1% of the products that are actually being produced. We have the luxury in the US of only seeing these successful products and only buying and interacting with the successful products. When you go over to China, you'll start to realize pretty quickly that, you know, for every one product that and one design and one feature that actually makes it in the United States and you know, has a market behind it, there's a, you know, 10,000 to 100,000 different variations of that were tried by different factories and manufacturers all around the world, not just in China, and failed and didn't make it to the United States. So just an interesting thing I've seen, you know, having my foot in both of these markets for so long, I think people really underestimate how many product variants and concepts are pushed out in China and elsewhere that never, ever make it to the United States.
It's all those funny things that you see on Alibaba 1688. You know, people make YouTube channels of those, like, oh, look at the crazy stuff I got from China. And this is what Will is talking about. And it's definitely eye-opening. I have the luxury of, you know, and this is the part I'm surprised that nobody asked, like, you know, what do I mean by banana? And here's what I mean. You know, obviously I'm not going to rehash why it's yellow on the outside, but the inside, you know, I was born in Europe, in Paris, actually. So I grew up with Westerners for the most part, but, you know, deep down inside you, the family that raised me was Asian. So, you know, you see a lot of like crazy stuff, you know, and that's kind of what Will was trying to say. You know, like they actually try a lot of product and iteration before they get it quite right.
Yes. All right, cool. Phone here says, the only reason you want to have the supplier put the ASIN on is because it's free. You don't have to pay extra.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, you know, and I wouldn't even have my manufacturer do it. I'll have my logistics team do it, right? So that, you know, alleviate you even more exposure, and it doesn't cost more. You know, and here's why I'm so hell bent on Prep Center. You know, on my very first product, you know, I was calculating costs and doing profit margin and whatnot, and you know, I was accounting for every dollar I was spending with whoever, and I found out that the Prep Center in the US accounting for all the costs, offloading, loading, and the dollar per unit that we were asking, it was like something like 12 freaking percent. I was like, wait a minute, 12% for what? For labeling stuff? No, hell no. You know, have my logistics team people do it, right? I mean, like, you know, not only it didn't cost me 12%, but, you know, when I saw him next and took him to dinner and gave him a red envelope, that more than made up for the services that they were going to do for free anyway.
Yeah, and I think, you know, US-based prep centers are really just a temporary solution. Again, you know, everything in the course for the most part is geared towards getting started from nothing. Getting started from nothing is a completely different set of tasks and strategies and problems that need to be overcome than growing a business. So,
absolutely.
So
if I wasn't
you always have to keep that in mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry if I wasn't making this clear. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, whatever you need to get started. If a prep center is what you need to apply those labels because you can't, you know, do that on a small run or whatever, or you don't have a logistics team to do it, by all means, right? This is the cost of doing business. You have to do it. What I'm saying in the long term, when you're trying to optimize your business and really, you know, do what we do here and trim up all the fat and save all those points, is, you know, cut out the people that you don't need.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what you guys need to do when you're starting out is get it up and running. And then once it's up and running, you can go optimize it. I think people really underestimate that we're like every listing that you get up and ranked is a cash flow producing asset that's going to put money in your pocket every single day. So I like big sellers don't care if they lose money. They try to lose money when they first launch new products. So your ultra competitive products, that's what's happening there. People are trying to lose money to build a cash flow producing asset because they've gotten to that level. They understand that. So, you know, when you're first starting out, use a prep center, do whatever you need to do. PayPal, like Do whatever you need to do to get the sales up and running. Once you have that cash flow producing asset, well, now we can, like, even if we've only broken even up until that point, even if we've lost 10% up until that point, now we can, make 30, 40% profit margin on that and actually turn it into a great source of profit.
Absolutely. An asset.
Yes. Cool. And yeah, definitely, I thought you explained that just fine. I just wanted to add that.
No problem, Will.
Phone here has a follow-up question. This is actually our final question as of right now. So if you guys have any additional questions for Gaston, go ahead and drop them in now. You also have Gaston's website here. Talked a little bit again about his packages, what they're going to do for you, and when kind of the right time to jump into that package is. And you can get started with that on lggcorp.com, thelggcorp.com.
Yep.
But here's our final question, and feel free, guys, if you have anything further, go ahead and drop it in. Phone's final question. She said, my supplier has asked me not to place the order from Alibaba due to the fee of 6% that they have to pay Alibaba, and let me pay the entire order by PayPal.
Yep.
I've paid the first 30%. What do you recommend I should do with the remaining 70%?
Pay them with PayPal also, unless you. Well, let me rephrase. So first of all, it's not uncommon to do this, right? I mean, have any of you guys hustle in your early days to use eBay to sell your stuff, right? I was always trying to get my highest bidder to do a deal on the side because I did not want it to pay eBay their 4 or 5% or whatever. The same
that still happens.
Yeah, well, so it's same concept there, right? Earlier I mentioned if you use AliTrade or whatever, they don't want to, give Alibaba whatever percentage for using their platform, right? I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could sell on Amazon and not have to pay that average 18 or 23%? You'd love it. So that's what they're trying to do. So that's not a weird thing. If you paid already 30%. With PayPal, I mean, yeah, I don't see any problem paying the remaining 70% with PayPal unless there's a trust issue here. I mean, is that what you're trying to say? Because I mean, you already gave them your 30% of your money using PayPal. What's the problem giving the rest of the 70%?
Yeah, and let us know, Phone. Yeah, I think that probably answers the question though. So yeah, in terms of that, perfectly kosher. The only thing to think about that we haven't mentioned too much here is inspections. So Phone, the only way you wouldn't pay the extra 70% is if you did an inspection and something was drastically wrong with that inventory. So I think that's the only real caveat there.
Oh, we can talk about inspection all day long. This is kind of a weird topic, right? I mean, inspection, it's a thing on its own. But honestly, I don't. It's gonna sound weird, but I don't do inspections anymore. I'm beyond past that because we established that trust. Well, if there's something like terribly wrong, then yes, I will do inspection then. But this is not my normal SOP anymore. But if I take on like a client and this is a requirement, then yes, I will do it. That's why I don't mind using those Ninja Inspector, right? Because there's just making sure that my stuff is there, not that the stuff is not gonna be good.
Yes, indeed. All right, Lada. Yeah, Fong. Before I get Lada's question here, Fong said, "I will have an inspection, but they will pay the inspection. I just need a confirmation." It's kind of weird if they're paying the inspection.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. You
kind of want a third party on that.
Yeah,
you don't even want a third party. You want your party on that. Like the best possible inspection is sending, yourself or like, a family member out there.
Or a ninja.
Yeah. So yeah, Fong, that would be okay. Yeah, Fong said if it didn't pass the inspection, they would pay the reinspection. Yes, that is better. That makes a lot more sense. Cool. All right. Let's see. I got Lada's question here. Cool. Lada said, sorry, I'm reading something. Lada has our final question of the evening, unless something else pops up real quick here. Lotta asked, are you also working with innovative ideas from scratch? Do you normally also, or yeah, so that's the only question. Do you, I guess, what kind of client do you like working with? Do you do, I don't think you're doing much of like the Kickstarter crowdfunding type of manufacturing. So can you talk about kind of what, some case studies, I guess, of people
Yeah,
you've worked with and
yeah,
kind of their
absolutely.
business models?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry if I did not make this clear in the stuff, right? So, we like to work with established e-commerce people, right? I mean, they have a specific volume. They already know what they want, and they are moving up in the e-commerce world, and they're just trying to optimize their stuff, right? So this is a product that already exists. And they try to improve upon, but we welcome brand new innovative ideas, right? Almost like the Kickstarter, but not really. Not to say that we cannot do it. We absolutely can. That's why we use our engineering power and project management power to make sure that your project is successful. The next step from that is just to take care of your manufacturing and lastly logistics. Right. This is what I mean by your one stop shop for all product related. It could be something that you are doing for Amazon, something that you're doing for Kickstarter, and then you have your own Shopify, or even people that do product that they sell on Facebook Live. I don't know if you guys are catching on to this, which is pretty cool. So, if it's product related, if it's part of manufacturing, if it's part of importation, the LGG Corp can definitely help there.
And what would you call yourself? Because you said sourcing agent is not exactly accurate. Contract manufacturer doesn't sound exactly accurate. So have you come up with a cool branded name for this yet?
Yeah, you know what? I have actually. I was talking to Ben about this, and Ben was like, "Well, you like the fixer gas?" And I was like, no, I don't want to make it sound like I'm like the fixer or something like that. But it's kind of what it is. If you have a problem with your manufacturing or whatever, just to get your stuff. I have clients that don't even deal with Asia. I fix their stuff with my project management skill and engineering skill for the US and US only. I have a few clients that that's all they do. They're adamant about not making this stuff in China. So I don't know. Would it be pretentious to be the fixer?
I don't think it's pretentious. That's not what I would call it. No, that's good. I think that's good, especially if someone else coined it. It
Yeah.
can't be pretentious. All right, cool. Well, that was our final question. Gaston, any parting words of advice as we leave here tonight?
Honestly, go do it. Go do everything. I mean, I don't mean to go and sign up with my services, but be super, super aggressive with your business, right? Innovate, keep on trying, right? And this is, I really, really come to term with this. If you want it bad enough, you'll definitely get it, no matter what it is. And this is my philosophy on this. I'll never stop. you know. So, and you shouldn't either.
Very good parting advice. All right, guys. Well, that's the show tonight. Lots of thank yous in the question box. People loved it. Yes, you can check that out. And they're still coming in. Guys, you have the link to the LGGcorp.com. I have the link in the chat box, and the link will also be with the replay of this session. We'll have this replay up within 12 hours or so. By tomorrow morning, we'll have this this replay live for you. And you have all the information you need on your screen. And Gaston again is active in the Facebook group. I'm sure he doesn't want to make a career out of just answering questions in the Facebook group or anything, but keep that in mind. Active in the Facebook group, a great member of the community. He's helped a ton of people in the community, both in a actual paid fashion and an unpaid fashion. So just a super helpful guy in the community. And we're glad to have them both in the community and here tonight. So once again, thanks a lot for being here, Gaston.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. We'll see you again soon, buddy. And for all of you, I think we actually do not have, I do not know. Steve signed off because he's driving right now. I do not know when our next bonus session is, but I'm sure we have one soon, and I will email you about it and post to the Facebook group. So, guys, thanks for being here tonight. Much love to you all. I think everyone got a ton of value, and the question box is blowing up with thank yous. And, of course, thank you guys for being here. go take action on some of this stuff. There's some great immediately applicable advice that can increase your margins. And of course, you got this information and this resource now for when you need it. So once again, guys, thanks for being here. We will see you next time. Good night, goodbye, and much love.
Bye-bye.